Hey everyone, welcome to another Angry Artist podcast. To continue the theme on art theory, I wanted to talk about the fundamentals of lighting. I will only have the time to talk about the basics of it because really it goes very deep and it would have to take me a lot of videos to talk about every aspect of lighting. Now, if you want to learn about lighting theory, you can definitely check out schoolism.com's lighting course. I'm not actually paid for this message, but of all the courses online that I've taken, that one has the most complete information when it comes to scientific lighting. So, really, what is lighting? Lighting encompasses everything because in order for us to see, light has to bounce off the object into our eyes. In theory, if we were to take out all light in our world, all we will have is pure darkness. Now, that sounds very obvious, but that's actually something that is fundamental when it comes to understanding lighting. If you know this fact, you are already ahead of the curve. Every piece of artwork technically starts in pure darkness. It's sort of having a blank canvas. Now, what you start putting in it will mean that you are creating light in the world. And everything in your little artwork will have to adhere to lighting rules. Now, of course, if you have a style that breaks lighting, that's up to you, but for the sake of argument, we'll talk about realistic lighting. So, what are the key steps in order to tackle the lighting problem? I created my own list because I feel like a lot of courses, while they're very comprehensive, they are a little bit complicated. When it comes down to it, there's only 5 things that you have to worry about. So first of all, lighting direction. Lighting direction, of course, means where is your light shooting at? For the sake of simplicity, we have to assume that light travels in a straight line, a beam of light. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated since a lot of light sources, such as light bulbs and the sun, will radiate outwards, meaning that it's not always going to be one direction throughout your piece. It could be a circular direction. Of course, it's important to establish that. And also, in most cases, many artists simplify the lighting source to be one direction. Because in essence, when we're making artworks, we are creating a scene. We are sort of pigeonholing ourselves into one situation. And when you do that, a lot of cases, the lighting is not going to be radiating outwards very much. If that's a little bit complicated, I'll explain it a little bit further. The sun technically radiates outwards. However, because the sun is so far away, in most up-close and personal artwork scenes, we will not need to worry about it because the sun is radiating outwards from its scale, and the sun is very large. The only time when you start seeing the effects of a radiating light source is if the distance is massive. For when it comes to the sun, of course. Light bulbs are different. Light bulbs are smaller scale, so if you are using a light source such as a light bulb, then you have to consider the radiating directions. The other term that a lot of people use is diffusion. Anyways, moving on to the second factor. The second factor is lighting intensity. As the name implies, lighting intensity basically shows how powerful the light source is. Now, this can be combined with lighting distance as well, because distance has a lot to do with the lighting intensity. The absolute rule of thumb is if your light source is farther away, then it starts getting weaker. A good example of that is going back to the sun. If we were very close to the sun, the intensity is ridiculous. It will probably melt us and melt our bones as well. So we are on Earth taking only a fraction, a very small fraction of the sun's intensity. So you need to know, okay, where is the light source and how far it is and how strong the light source is. And then when you factor all those things together, you have lighting intensity. So of course, lighting intensity and lighting distances are different. So you could say is lighting intensity being number 2 and lighting distance being number 3. Of course, for the sake of doing artwork, it's better to really understand that both correlates with each other. So I guess we can go to number 4. Number 4 is lighting temperature. Now, lighting temperature is going into color theory, and it gets into very, very difficult ideas. For the sake of simplicity, of course, we can talk about the idea of warm and cool lighting. So every light has their own temperature. You might be able to find the scientific analysis of this. So for instance, an incandescent light bulb is very warm and a fluorescent light bulb is very cool. And the sun, of course, is actually pure white light at noon. So this will affect how your objects will receive the lighting. So of course, if an object receives warm lighting, the areas which are hit by warm lighting will be warm. It's warmer than the base color of the object or the local color. So you need to break down which temperature is your light source at, and then figure out what color is it leaning towards. Because there are different types of cool lighting. Of course, we could go down the spectrum, but let's say you have a blue lighting and there's another green lighting. They're both cooler in nature, but of course they will give off a different effect on the objects. The last factor, the fifth one, is reflectivity of the object. Now, this is not directly due to the light source, but more so the objects that are being affected by the light source. Now, taking in all the other 4 factors, we have to consider, okay, how will this object absorb and or reflect the lighting? Basically, how shiny something is. So for instance, a mirror is high in reflectivity because it will almost get you a perfect image of yourself, of whatever it hits. The light will just bounce off. The light will just bounce off the mirror and go into your eye with very few absorptions. Now, of course, then you can go down the list of reflectivity. I will be making another video to talk about reflections and how it works. For now, let's just put it at that. So why is these all important? It's very simple, really. Going back to the first point in this podcast, I was talking about how in the particular artwork, you're creating your own world, your own set of rules. In order to make something look realistic, it has to adhere to the rules. Now, it sounds a little simple, but it's very easy to catch into the trap of painting your artwork, but different parts of your artwork adhere to different rules. So, hopefully that was helpful. If you put down all these 5 notes together, and you can accurately describe what your scene will be lit as, then you are more likely to keep these rules intact when you're painting, and your scene will look more realistic because of it. The biggest mistake a lot of people do is, again, they forget their own rules or they're accidentally breaking the rules in certain parts, and they're basically creating different universes within the same artwork. Now, of course, you can do that because of style, of course, but let's assume we're creating realism. And realism is always bound by lighting rules. It puts everything together. No matter if your objects are red, black, blue, whatever, you put them in the same scene, they will be affected by the same light. Anyways, hopefully that was helpful. I'll be talking more about lighting in future podcasts. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.